Raider Nation, what's going on? It's Mitchell Renz here, host of the Raiders Report. And coming up on today's show, I'm going to get into all the Raiders training camp news that you need to see. And I'm very confident when you get done watching this video, you're going to sit at home or wherever you're watching this. Maybe you're watching it on the toilet, dropping a number 2. You're going to go, all right, the Jakorian Bennett for Thomas Booker trade, it makes a little bit more sense after seeing some of the news that happened today. Also, at the very end of today's program, the Raiders released their official depth chart, or technically unofficial depth chart, on the offensive side of the football and the defensive side of the football. I'm going to give you my biggest takeaways from that. But first, NFL news that you need to know. And the reason why that I bring this up is because the Raiders are in a very similar situation right now with Charles Snowden, who had a court case on July 22nd for a DUI. If you remember in the video that I did around Snowden, I told everybody the one player that you should be looking at is Jordan Addison, who is also right now experiencing something very similar to Snowden, and the NFL just suspended him 3 games without pay for that DUI violation. Snowden is probably going to face a very similar suspension, so I just want you to keep this in the back of your mind. The dominoes are starting to fall. The ball is starting to roll here a little bit. I think a suspension for Snowden is going to be coming, and it's probably going to be 3 games. Another move that ended up happening literally just a few minutes ago, Quandre Diggs, he ended up signing to the Tennessee Titans, and I was sitting back, and I always wonder what dominoes can fall when other stuff happens. The Raiders potentially lost Lonnie Johnson for the season. Doesn't sound like they lost him for the season anymore if you listen to Pete Carroll's press conference. We'll talk about that here in a moment. But there's been a lot of people like myself who have been wondering, are the Raiders going to go out and are they going to get a safety? Yeah, I want Justin Simmons. Quandre Diggs has been somebody that I've been talking about a bunch, though. And because Diggs just ended up going back to the Tennessee Titans, does that mean the Raiders could pick up the phone and give Simmons a call, John Johnson a call, somebody else on the open market, Jordan Whitehead, whoever it is? Maybe it's Stephon Gilmore at corner. I don't know exactly. But the big-time training camp news that y'all need to know today, Leki Fotu, Raiders defensive tackle, he found himself in a walking boot. And I don't know if it's just you. I don't know if I'm PTSD, but I hear defensive tackle, I hear walking boot, and I go, not again. But also, this should have popped up. That light bulb should have gone off in your head, and you should have go, all right, well, now the trade with Jakorian Bennett for Thomas Booker, it makes just a little bit more sense because Leki was the guy that when Wilkins went down, Fotu was the one that they were putting into the mix there, and they were trying to see what he had to offer. And Fotu was kind of in that mix to be one of those top defensive tackles. So what do the Raiders do? They go out and they get a Thomas Booker, somebody that's got a Super Bowl championship under his belt, somebody that, has actually gotten a lot of high praise for some previous Eagles players, just couldn't quite find the field because of how talented that defensive tackle room was. But I know, myself included, I was joined by thousands of people live yesterday going, Mitch, why did the Raiders just trade away Jakorian Bennett? I think it's because Leki Fotu's banged up. Christian Wilkins, we're still looking for a replacement for him. And the Raiders did something very interesting on their depth chart that we will talk about here in just a moment. So what is your confidence level in the Raiders defensive tackle? Scale it from 1 to 10. 1, you're not confident at all. 10, you are very, very confident in this unit. My answer coming up after this YouTube ad break. I'm going to go 5 out of 10. And I say that because I think it's a coin flip. There are some really talented players on that defensive tackle room. If you're telling me I can add Tyree Wilson to the DT room, I'll go up to a 6. The Raiders listed Tonka Hemingway as a defensive end, not a defensive tackle. So that makes me think, all right, that defensive tackle room did get a little bit worse. With Leki right now being banged up, I believe in Rob Leonard. I believe in Pete Carroll. I believe in this stat. But when you look at the players on paper, it's not a great defensive tackle room. That we have to be honest with ourselves about. Also, some good news here. A possible return this upcoming season for Lonnie Johnson Jr. I said this earlier in the week when I saw a lot of people going, oh, Johnson's out for the year. Johnson's out for the year. I sat up here and I was like, well, technically that's not true because the Raiders haven't made that announcement yet, and they're keeping him on the roster, which they have done. Today, during his press conference, Pete Carroll said that the hope is that they're going to be able to get back Johnson in weeks 4 to 5. I also do wonder, could the Raiders potentially be a little bit more safer? They play the Chiefs week 7. Do you make sure that he's 100% healthy? Do you try to get him an extra game before that? Week 6 against the Titans, week 5 against the Indianapolis Colts. But the Raiders also have that week 8 bye. To make sure that you don't rush a player back, I wonder if the Raiders could wait until week 7, week 8. But the fact that Pete Carroll said today that the hope is that they're going to be able to get him back by week 4 or 5, that's a really good sign. And I think it's also a sign that maybe they don't go out and try to get a safety or somebody else in that secondary. Let's go to the next thing here that I saw from Raiders training camp news today. Alex Cappa, he did not participate in practice today. He had a baseball cap on, and it's kind of the final practice. It's the final practice before the Raiders are going to be battling, going up against the Seattle Seahawks. I think that this also just shows that JPJ is going to be the one starting at right guard. But when you look at the Raiders depth chart, they put Cappa and JPJ both at starting right guard. Very interesting there. Brock Bowers, another phenomenal day for him. 2 touchdowns. He's so good, and I feel like I'm about to go into a territory here of, I did it a few years ago where I stopped talking about Max during these shows because it was like every day, Max Crosby did this, Max Crosby did that, Max did this. Brock's starting to kind of get in that realm of, if he's not doing something amazing, then, you're like, well, what the hell's going on? He's just so good every day. Another 2 touchdown day. Geno Smith, Brock Bowers. I said 9 touchdowns for Brock. I'm going to stick to that number. I think he's getting 9, maybe double digits this season. Jack Bech, Alex Bachman, Colin Johnson, all got runs with the 1s today. And I'm not looking at that as, oh, man, Jack Bech, Alex Bachman, and Colin Johnson are all going to be starters this season. I think what Pete Carroll is trying to do is he's trying to prep the nation and trying to prep a bunch of us because, yes, Pete did say that the starters are going to be ready to go. He kind of hinted that they could play, though. In the past years, Pete doesn't always typically play a lot of his starters. But the way that I looked at this is the top 3 receivers that the Raiders want to see the most out of in this first preseason game. Jack Bech, Alex Bachman, Colin Johnson. Quite frankly, I think the Raiders could keep 2 out of those 3 receivers on this 53-man. If it was up to me, I'd keep Bech. I think they're going to keep Alex Bachman. I'll talk more about that in just a little bit. But for those that do not know, I am going to be live for this Raiders preseason game. So if you could, set a reminder in your calendar. Put a reminder on your phone. I'm going to be going live, no doubt, 1 hour before. If you're watching this show and you're watching Tuesday Live, I put out a deal that I might even go live 2 hours before. If you believe in Raider Nation as much as I do, then be ready to go live 2 hours before this one's getting started, because I'm telling you this right now, we will be the #1 most watched Raiders Seahawks show on YouTube. We will be the largest watch party out there, and I'm hoping we can get to 100,000 people watching. For a preseason game, I've never done that before, and I'm going to challenge the nation to help us get there. Make sure you're subscribed. Let's go to the final thing here today for my training camp notes. Michael Mayer, another touchdown for him. And I just keep bringing up the touchdowns for the tight ends because Chip Kelly is showing you that he is doing a great job with the vertical passing attack. He's also showing you, though, that he can get Bowers involved, that he can get Michael Mayer involved. And I do really believe that both of these guys are going to have a solid season this year for the Silver and Black. The other day, somebody was asking me, Mitch, do you think Michael Mayer is worth picking up in a fantasy football league? It would have to be a deep league, like a 14-teamer, but I do think it's something to just keep in mind because if, God forbid, if something did happen to Brock, the Raiders are going to use Mayer, and Mayer's going to be a very touchdown-specialized guy, but I could absolutely see him getting 4 to 5 touchdowns this upcoming season, which does hold a little bit of fantasy value. Coming up next here on the show, we're going to get into the Raiders depth chart takeaways, and I probably could have done an entire show around the Raiders depth chart, but just because of all the other things there were to talk about between the trade last night, training camp practice today, the Raiders preview up against Seattle, I had to smush some stuff together a little bit, and hopefully you guys don't mind if I'm smushing from time to time. Though it makes me think of a Jersey Shore reference, and I don't miss Jersey Shore. Though I did go to college with Snooki's husband, Gianni, for a year, which is pretty wild. Met Snooki one time. That's besides the point. My point here is we got Raiders jerseys on sale. Go to chatsports.com/Raiders jerseys. If you're looking for a Brock Bowers, Ashton Genty, Max Crosby, if there's a player that rocks with the silver and black, We got jerseys for it, and they go in sizes from small all the way up to 5XL. Some of you are probably like, Mitch, can I get a jersey for my kids? Yes, you can. Can I get a jersey for my wife? Yes, you can. Can I get a jersey for my side piece? You can get it for all your pieces, quite frankly. And they have all sorts of colors. They have also some of the legendary players as well, because believe me when I get it, I've seen people get a Darren Waller jersey, a Josh Jacobs jersey, Henry Ruggs jersey, you name it. There's been jerseys where we can't wear them anymore. But you know what jerseys you can wear? All of the Hall of Famers, Ken Stabler, Howie Long, Bo Jackson, Jim Plunkett. There are tons and tons of NFL Hall of Fame, Raider Hall of Fame players at chatsports.com/Raiders jerseys, and they're on sale. Some of them are a little bit more on sale than $26. Some are a little bit more expensive. My point is, jerseys are on sale, and I have no idea how much longer they're going to be on sale for. But if you need one, go get one. All right, let's go to the training camp. Depth chart takeaways. I'm going to start on the offensive side of the football, and then I will go to the defensive side of the football and just give you my quickest takeaways. Now, first, what I want to show you is the official, unofficial Raiders depth chart that they released, and there's a lot to digest in here. At the very top, you see wide receiver. Some people might think that means wide receiver 1. I would really look at that as more of like Jacoby's in the slot, which is why they have him listed there. You can see the offensive line, you see the tight end, the running back room. To me, the first thing that jumped out at me, and it's just because it's what I look for every time I see a depth chart or every time I see the Raiders go out at practice field, who's at center? And Jordan Meredith is at center. And the fact that Meredith is at center and it says JPJ and Alex Cappa at right guard, I think that tells me everything that I need to know. That the Raiders really do value that Meredith is going to be the starting center this season and that JPJ's got a battle against Alex Cappa to be right guard. I am hopeful that the Raiders realize that JPJ is better, but I also have to do this as a host, and we have to do this a better job as a fan base. I went back and I watched some clips of JPJ at that Raiders mock game, and he wasn't nearly as clean as what I thought he should have been. I expect more from JPJ. Y'all should expect more from JPJ, and I hope that we see it in this preseason game against the Seattle Seahawks. Next thing that I noticed, the running back 2 battle. Ashton Genty's the number 1. But if you looked at that list, it said Zamir White, Raheem Mostert, Chris Collier for the running back 2 duties. That means Sincere McCormick and Dylan Laube on the outside. I'll tell you this right now. Raiders aren't keeping Dylan Laube on this roster. And it's only a matter of time before we accept that fact, or however you want to put it. But Laube ain't making this team. And if he does, he's doing wild shit during preseason games. Like, he's got to be going off and doing stuff like Tyreek McAllister in the final preseason game where you're like, you have to keep this guy. I'm telling you, though, that running back 2 battle, watch out for Chris Collier being a sneaky guy. He's been doing a lot of good stuff. Zamir White continues to do a lot of good stuff. Raheem Mostert, I almost wonder if they did that because Mostert missed some practices just due to the birth of his child, but definitely going to be a battle to watch. Tight end 3 battle. We know Bowers and Mayer are 1 and 2, but Ian Thomas kind of looked like he was safely going to be the tight end 3. If you also notice, Justin Shorter was listed as a wide receiver, not as a tight end. But one of the things that I love that Pete Carroll does is as soon as anybody thinks, oh, that guy's got that battle locked in, no doubt about it, goes out, trades for Albert OK, former 4th-round tight end drafted by the Denver Broncos, got some ties to this current organization as the Raiders' assistant general manager, Brian Stark, and now he's competing with Ian Thomas for that tight end 3 spot. Quite frankly, I think that they could keep all 4 of those tight ends. Let's go to the top 3 wide receivers. We know that it's going to be Dante Thornton Jr., that it's going to be Trey Tucker, and it's going to be Jakobi Meyers. Those are your top 3. But then, what's after that? Because from what it looks like it's going to be Alex Bachman, Jack Bech, and Colin Johnson. That is based off of the way that the Raiders put some players out there onto the field, at least just today for running with the ones, if you're following along at practice. But I right now really do think that the top 6 wide receivers on this team are Jakobi Meyers, Trey Tucker, Dante Thornton, and I will say going forward on my Raiders wide receiver depth chart, just because it's the way the Raiders have it listed, you're going to see Jakobi as wide receiver 1/slot, and all the players underneath him are going to be those slot players. Let's go to the final note here, and it's Alex Bachman. If you followed this show over the past week, let's say 10 days, One of the things that I've said multiple times on this program is Alex Bachman continues to work his way up that depth chart, which means bad news for Tommy Mellott as he continues to fall down. I know in my most recent 53-man, I did not have Bachman on the team. I'm pretty confident I'm going to put Alex Bachman on the team next time, even if it means I got to move on from a certain rookie. Let's go to the defensive side of the football, and there's a lot to be able to digest on this depth chart. I'm not going to lie to you, and you can look from the very top, you can go all the way down. Again, I could have done an entire video on all this stuff, but the very first thing that I noticed, Tonka Hemingway being listed as a defensive end. And reminder, I am filming this video on Tuesday, August 5th. The same day that Jordan Addison just got suspended. I wonder if the Raiders are putting Tonka at defensive end right behind Charles Snowden because they think that Snowden can get a 3-game suspension for that DUI that he had back on December 10th, 2024. Court case was on July 22nd. But Tonka, before anybody freaks out, they're like, why are they switching him? He was a defensive end, defensive tackle. You know I've said tweener 100 million times on this program. That's what Tonka Hemingway is. He's a bit of a tweener. Look at him as like a Tyree Wilson type of player. Let's then go to the next thing, the top 6 linebackers. The top 6 linebackers on that depth chart, Jermaine Pratt, Devin White, Landon Roberts, Jamal Adams, Tommy Eichenberg, and then what exactly is in the mix? Because guess who's next? Jalen Smith. And Jalen Smith was listed as the number 2. Not Amari Gaynor, not Cody Lindenberg, and I know the Raiders drafted Lindenberg in the 7th. I was talking to somebody close to Lindenberg, and based on the conversations that I've had, it sounds like it's up in the air of whether or not he's going to make the roster or not. For a dude like Amari Gaynor, he keeps falling behind. This team wants to be a little bit more physical. Jamal Adams has played really well, but when the Raiders listed their top 6 linebackers, Cody Lindenberg went in that top 6. Amari Gaynor wasn't in that top 6. Linebacker is absolutely going to be a battle to watch in the preseason. Let's go to the top 4 defensive tackles. Adam Butler's the easy one, but Leki Fotu's in a boot right now, and he's somebody that they have listed as a top 4 defensive tackle. The Raiders went out, they traded for Thomas Booker, and I am hopeful, quite frankly, if the Raiders don't keep Booker and they traded away Jakorian Bennett, I'm going to be really pissed off, and that's just point blank simple. So I believe that Booker is somebody that's a lock to make this team. But Leki right now battling a little bit of injuries. Zach Carter's kind of in the mix there. J.J. Pegues is up there in the mix. But right now our top 4 defensive tackles, Jonnu Lalu, Adam Butler, Leki Fotu, Zach Carter. But if you looked at the depth chart, they still show Jakorian and they don't show Thomas Booker. So I think that there is a clear-cut top 5 DTs. Lalu, Carter, Booker, Butler, Fotu. Let's go to the next thing. Greedy, Vance, JT Woods continue to climb up that depth chart, and I think that these are the 2 players, low-key, are why the silver and black decided to move on from a Jakorian Bennett. Yes, Jakorian was a good outside corner, but the Raiders were very confident in Stokes, Porter, and Richardson to be those outside guys. So I almost wonder if they were trying to make Jakorian an inside corner, realize, you know what, he's not going to be able to do it, but JT Woods maybe can. Maybe Greedy Vance can overall. Darnay Holmes is probably sweating that Greedy's going to end up taking his job, but I do know for a fact that this team loves what they have, and they love what they have right now with JT Woods and Greedy Vance. And then the final thing that I ended up noticing, Eric Stokes, Darian Porter are going to be your top 2 corners, and this is kind of what it's been all off season long. Stokes has earned that number 1 corner spot, and Darian Porter continues to go out there and show out that he is a legit outside piece that I think is only going to get better and better and better. So out of all those takeaways, out of everything that you saw in the depth chart, maybe I missed something that, y'all are like, bro, I don't know how you didn't bring this up. Cool part about this show is you guys can let me know. Please, 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 what is your biggest depth chart takeaway? My biggest depth chart takeaway, can you switch up those photos before you show it, is about to come up here in just a moment, and I'm making Chugs stall, and it's because of me. I tried to build something, and that's just why I should never build anything on this program. But I think one of the biggest takeaways from the depth chart, I can just say it, is got to be around Tommy Mellott. And it's got to be around Mellott because over the past week to 10 days, when I've been talking a lot about Bachman, the news and reports that I have been getting are Mellott's not looking too good. And, this was somebody that The Raiders were hopeful that they could put him on punt return. They were hopeful they'd be able to put him on kick return. And I'll be very transparent. I do not know if he's going to end up making this roster. You were so close. I know, I screwed everything up. Don't worry. Daniel Carlson and A.J. Cole don't look like Trey Tucker, I promise you. But what I really wanted to be able to point out is overall the fact that when you look at that punt return screen, you see Trey Tucker is listed as the starter at punt return, and he's listed as the starter at kick return. Also, though, the backup punt returner, they have listed Ashton Genty. That's mind-blowing to me. The other guy they have listed, Alex Bachman. Then you go look at kick return. It's Sincere McCormick. It's Dylan Laube. They don't even have Tommy Mellott listed. They have him listed as fourth string on special teams, and then they have him listed behind Alex Bachman on the wide receiver room. I know yesterday I said that I would keep Mellott, and I'll stand 10 toes on that. I would keep Tommy Mellott because he's a player that you knew was going to be a developmental player. And I don't know why you would take somebody that you know is going to be a developmental player if you're not going to try to develop him. So I would still keep him on the roster, but I'm telling you this right now, there is a chance that Mellott doesn't make this roster. There is a chance that Cody Lindenberg doesn't make this roster. And I think we just got to realize just because you draft somebody doesn't make them a lock to make this roster. You know what is a lock? I'm going to be hanging out in Tucson, Arizona. Put it down on your calendar, Friday, August 22nd. And if anybody wants to come hang out with me, I'm going to be hanging out with Fabian Moreno and a bunch of crazy Raiders fans. For those of you that do not know, this is going to be right before the Raiders' final preseason game up against the Arizona Cardinals. If you're like, Mitch, I live near Tucson. Or, Mitch, I'll pull up and I'll come hang out with you guys from, 12 to 3. Yep. Noon to 3 o'clock, I'm going to be at Desert Shark Tucson. Here is the address if you want to be able to put it in. We're going to be hanging out. We're going to have some good food. We're going to have some good beers. Somebody who has always been a big supporter on the show this offseason, my guy Fabian Moreno. Some of y'all might know him as the Night Devil. I gave him a deal earlier in the offseason. I said, hey, man, if you're the Bang MVP for 2 straight months, I'm going to come out and visit you. So he's really excited about it. I hope that y'all are really excited about it. And if you want to hang out, talk a little bit of Raiders, I'll also say this. Just like I said to Nab, man, I'm only going to be on your show for 30 minutes, and I was there for 2.5 hours. If we get a bunch of people that show up, there's no reason why we can't hang out all day. Literally, I have nothing planned that day. I am flying in the morning, and I'm leaving the next day to go cover the game here at Chat Sports. If y'all want to hang out Friday, August 22nd, you better get your butt to Desert Shark Tucson from noon to 3 o'clock. And the more people that are there at 3, the longer we're going to continue to hang out. Can't wait for the meetup. Can't wait to meet you, Fabian, and everybody that's been involved. And I can't wait to meet the entire Raiders fan group out there as well.